Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I'm going to teach you how to change somebody's opinion about something. If you've ever participated in an online discussion or discussed something controversial with a friend or family member, you know just how hard it can be to change somebody's opinion about something, even if you know without a shadow of a doubt you're right and they're wrong. That's one mistake you're making right there, but we'll talk about that later. The gameplay that you're going to get to see is some very aggressive Vepr action on the map Strike Zone. I'm going to come in first in the team, get about 44 kills, 10-11 captures, lots of kill streaks, good gameplay coming up. Very aggressive gameplay too, but I wanted to talk about opinions. We see them a lot on YouTube. You need only look down at the comment section of this video to see a wide variety of opinions, both right, wrong, informed, uninformed, intelligent, unintelligent, very wide mix. So moving forward, we're going to use generalizations of people and things and strategies and tactics. All the people in the world exist on a spectrum. They do different things. They are not 100% predictable, but we're going to use average persons, average peoples, and stereotypes moving forward because that is easy. The first mistake that almost everyone makes about trying to change another person's opinion is that facts matter, or that facts convert people, that if you can show them that they are factually, technically incorrect, that they will change their mind and move over to your side, whereas this is unfortunately just not true. There was a study about this recently which gave me the idea for this video, and for this is kind of where we left off in the favela video, what a lot of you wanted to hear about, and it really helped me articulate some things that I've known for a long time. So moving forward with mistake number one, facts do not change people's opinions. They just don't. The number one reason is that they don't is people's opinion are kind of tied to their concepts of themselves and their world, and they don't like those concepts being challenged. When you challenge somebody's opinion or belief, there's a lot of defense mechanisms that just kick into place and are very difficult to get around. They just really inhibit proper factual, technical ingestion of things like that. Two is that not everyone can even think critically, especially when you're discussing a very complex topic. If you assume that everybody has the same or greater or maybe even comparable critical thinking skills to yourself, you might just be wrong. There's some people that think differently, they think emotionally, they think laterally, or they're just not super intelligent and it's not going to go. And also, sources might not be trusted. If you try to lay facts on people, one of the first things they're going to do is ask you where these facts came from, and depending on their political beliefs, depending on their personal circumstance, or a lot of other things, they just might not be inclined to believe you regardless of where you got the information from. So this is a stalemate. Mistake number two is that you assume this is an external process. I meet a person who has an opinion about something that I don't, and I want to change it, and the way for me to do this is to push this opinion on them, for just kind of bomb them and break them down and wear them down and force them to do things that they don't really want to do, and that's not how it works. The process of changing minds is not an external process where you force it down somebody's throat and you cram it into them, and pushing too hard often leads to being pushed back. If you think about the rebellious teenager or counterculture or anything like that, the reality is that changing opinions is an internal process, and it has to do with self-identity. Like it or not, every single person, whether they want to admit it, to some degree views the world centered around them at the center point. Their experiences, their perspectives, their idea of who they are and what is right and what is wrong is the center point of their world, and everything else comes out of that. And our beliefs about the world and things around us kind of define who we are. We are, if nothing, a collection of our experiences, opinions, beliefs, and we'll say inclinations toward different things, all of which can be changed, but it's not an easy process. As I mentioned before, challenging these beliefs directly challenges us and how we see ourselves as a person, so you hit a huge, huge resistance here, and this causes nothing to happen. However, if you can create an internal dialogue between beliefs, or about beliefs, or which is essentially going to be about yourself and who you are and what you stand for, then you can kind of get some cracks in the armor, and you can get some work going on, and you can kind of cause people to think differently than they normally would. There are two main ways to do this, though there are probably hundreds. I'm going to keep it relatively simple for this video. Number one is that you can sort of create or craft a new belief that lines up with who this person thinks they are. If they think that they're a good person, or if they think that they will or would or could or should be doing something, and you in some way explain what it is that you're trying to explain in a way that appeals to them and their self-identity, they're very likely to take it. If you're trying to change something that's very contrary to who they are, this is usually a religious or political matter, not science and facts are a little bit harder, you have to create a conflict between the different things that they believe. You have to show them that they are in some way at odds with themselves, and the cognitive dissonance will cause one of two things. It will cause them to either completely shut you down and ignore you, because again, this is not an exact science and sometimes you just lose, or you'll create a dialogue of beliefs in their brain and one or the other will win them out. I'll use an example of this. Let's say that there is a discussion about the food bank budget at the local city council meeting. They don't have enough budget for everything in the world, and you're trying to argue for extra money for the food bank for the poor for whatever reason. The example is random, but it fits into really into what we're doing here. And let's say you have a conservative Christian council member who thinks in terms of moral absolutism, a lot of right and wrong, a lot of we should do this and we shouldn't do this, and this can't stand and that can stand, and I'm going to do right and do the best and holy and Christian and this sort of stuff. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just the very stereotypical line of thought. Not everybody is that way. So what you would do is appeal to them and ask them if they would turn away a poor person at their doorstep. You would ask them what Jesus recommended doing about the poor. You would ask them what their pastor recommended. You would ask them if it were morally right to hoard food while others starved. And you would kind of appeal to this sense of moral right and wrong and what they have to do and what they should be doing, what is the right, proper Christian, holy thing to do, or anybody with any sort of moral comeuppance would be working on. What this does is it appeals to their current beliefs, and it causes them to kind of see this thing from a different perspective and agree that this is what they should be doing. And let's imagine that on this same council there is a very stereotypical liberal atheist. We'll imagine her as a woman with hairy armpits. That's easy because it's very, insulting. And you would explain this to her very differently. You would ask her if she believes in creating dissonance within society, if she believes in really creating social strife and conflict and class wars, and you mention this kind of stuff, and of course the answer would be no, I don't like that. And you mention that when poor people can't eat, when the homeless are starving, they get more desperate, they get more rowdy, they get angry, they thieve, they riot, they rabble. And what this is going to do is it's going to make her think about the ideal world that she would want to live in, where people all get along, where there's enough to go around, and where there's some degree of social order. And she'll have to either decide that that's not what she believes, or that she'll need to give money to the lowest of the low, the poorest of the poor, so that they fit in and they have a place within this idyllic world in her brain. And again, that's a very stereotypical example, but either one of those will win out. Again, you can't always win, and ideally she would say, yes, that makes sense, that appeals to her. Let's use a much more complex example now. Those relied on stereotypes. Let's use one of a person that is not politically leaning or influenced, a very neutral individual. We'll call him John Doe or John Gray or the middleman or something like that. Except he is a global warming denier. And I'm using global warming as an example here. I have opinions on that we're not going to discuss in this episode, but let's say you're a gung-ho environmentalist and you want to change somebody's opinion on global warming, and you know that they don't like it. So what you would do is you would start off talking about pollution. You'd ask them what they say about pollution, just mention it in some kind of way, and pretty much 99% of people is going to say pollution is bad, it's unacceptable, air is bad, or sea poisoned, all this kind of stuff. Very few people are going to say, oh, it's fine. Then the next thing you would want to do is ask them if you think the world is more polluted now or less polluted than it was before, and they'll explain. And again, about 99% of people will say that it's worse off now than it was before for a variety of reasons. And eventually you can get them to agree with this. And then you would ask them, what do you think could be done about all this pollution in the world? And they'll probably give you some answers. So we're kind of leading them on a trail here. And then you would ask, is there anything else that you think would be worth investigating? If I'm listening to you and what I'm trying to do is get them to tell me how they would fix the world when I'm really manipulating them. And again, this can be a very evil thing. And you would ask them, okay, well, we fixed pollution. What else do you think would be looking into along this same line of thing? And you could maybe bring it up in a list of things, but you should bring up global warming at this point very neutrally, again, like on a list, like what should we do about it? And you'll let them talk about it. And at this point, they're kind of primed for openness. They are thinking about how they would change the world. They're really going over ideas they might not have done before, and they're seeing you as a very friendly person that agrees with them. And you've already planted this seed of doubt about what they believe. They're very, very primed right now. And what you could do at this point, after they offer your opinion, no matter what they said, you say that, well, I think global warming is important. I think it's at least important enough to research, at least important enough to learn about. And based on where they're going and where you've been before, the majority of people will say, Maybe. Now, some people, of course, very hardline, they'll just tell you that's total crap and you're wrong. But a lot of people will, at this point, agree with you that, maybe it's worth researching, maybe it's worth looking into, maybe whatever. What they expect is that, they'll find results that confirm to what they say. At this point, you could say that you researched it. Now, they're going to start asking you questions like, oh, you researched it. And they're going to ask you because you've been friendly and you've been going along with everything they say. And then you tell them what you found out about the info. And in this case, you're an environmentalist, so you'll tell them, oh, global warming is bad. But you won't say, oh, yeah, definitely true, definitely this, it has to be this. You'll say that it seems true, that it looks pretty legit to me. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it is. It's true enough for me to care about. It's true enough for me to put the work into. And this other individual, as your friend and as a person who you've been agreeing with almost exclusively, is very primed to agree with you that it's true enough to care about. It's true enough to look into. It's true enough that, it's on their radar and it's worth it. And then at this point, it is the perfect time to suggest that they read about it or point towards something of your opinion, something that will back you up, or some relatively simple things to look at. At this point, this critical point, the person is very, very open and receptive to your ideas, and they're the most likely to agree with you. However, they still might not. All those defense mechanisms might not be in place. The facts might not be good enough. They might not like what they read. There's a million things that can go wrong. But at this critical point, they are the most likely to change their mind about global warming and agree with you. And I would say that you have a high probability of changing a mind. Again, this is an example. It could totally go wrong, and it's sort of a mental trick, and I would appreciate it if you'd please be responsible with it. Pushing your views onto others is really not a good idea. They have to kind of stumble across them themselves. That's what we talked about earlier. Just push, trick, doesn't work. You really need to let them go down their own path and make their own minds up. And if you are somehow a wizard and you perfect this and just manage to make everybody believe the same thing you do, I believe that you would find the world to be a very miserable place. Just think about the Twilight Zone episode where the grumpy old man thought that the world would be a better place if everybody were just like him. If everybody agreed with him and thought the things that he thought, that it would be a much better world, and he got his wish, and it turned out to be a nightmare. It was absolutely horrible if everybody's like you and everybody's the same. So do keep that, and keep your head on straight if somebody's trying this to you. Politicians don't do it a whole lot. They're usually looking for sound bites, for rhetoric, emotional appeal, factual appeal, very simple things, but clever people will try this on you, so please do try to keep your rational, logical brain chugging as good as you can. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something useful, and if you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.